They always chose my brother, celebrated him, listened to him. I was just there. Then one day, they showed up at my door, asking for something only I could give. I am Daniel. I am 36 now, but back then, I was just the other son. That is what it felt like, anyway. My brother, Josh, was the golden child, the miracle baby, the one with asthma and allergies and a sensitive heart, as my mom used to say. And me? I was just there. From the time I was old enough to understand what was going on, I knew the rules. If Josh cried, I had to be quiet. If he struggled, I had to succeed silently. And if I ever wanted something for myself, it came with a side of guilt. I remember being 7 years old and asking for a bike for my birthday. Nothing fancy, just one of those used ones I had seen down at the pawn shop. My dad rubbed his temples and told me, "We cannot afford that right now, buddy. Josh needs new medication." That same week, Josh got a brand new tablet. No explanation. That kind of thing happened a lot. Report cards, school plays, spelling bee wins. I would bring them home, hoping maybe this time someone would care. I got a pat on the back at best, then the conversation would shift. Josh failed a math test once, and they hired a private tutor for him. I made the honor roll 3 semesters in a row. You know what they said? "Well, we expect that from you, Daniel. You are the easy one." I started to believe it, that maybe being invisible was just who I was meant to be. So I stopped making noise. I stopped asking for things. I stopped celebrating my wins. When your victories get ignored long enough, they stop feeling like victories. Birthdays? Forgotten more often than remembered. My 16th birthday, they took Josh to the ER for a panic attack. Understandable, sure. But they forgot to reschedule anything. No cake. No card. Just silence. The next morning, Mom made pancakes and said, "Sorry, honey, you know your brother's going through a lot right now." That sentence became the anthem of my youth. Your brother's going through something. Always. He was going through something, and I was just going through the motions. But I stayed quiet. I stayed reliable. I figured maybe someday, someone would notice. That day did come, but not the way I imagined. Because one day, everything fell apart for Josh. And suddenly, they remembered I existed. It started with a phone call. I had just wrapped up a long day at work. Project deadlines, traffic, spilled coffee on my shirt. I was unlocking my apartment door when my phone lit up with Mom's name. That alone was weird. She never really called me unless she needed help fixing her laptop or moving furniture. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something told me to pick up. Her voice was shaky. She asked if I had heard from Josh. I told her no. We had not spoken in months. We were never close, not even as adults. Every holiday, he made some half-hearted effort to bond. Usually over expensive wine or showing off his new car, but it always felt fake. Like he was checking a box. Mom sighed, and then came the bombshell. Josh had lost everything. Some startup investment he was pouring money into had gone belly up. Not just lost money, he was in serious debt. Credit cards maxed. Car repossessed. There were whispers about something illegal, though she danced around the details. Oh, and he had been diagnosed with something serious. A heart condition. Real this time. Not the vague episodes he used to fake in high school to get out of gym class. This was the real deal. He had collapsed during a meeting. Ended up in the hospital. Alone. I stood there in my hallway, keys still in hand, and felt nothing. No panic. No rush of concern. Just silence. Then Mom said the words I had never expected to hear. "We need you, Daniel." She said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like she was inviting me over for dinner. No apology. No acknowledgement of how they had treated me for years. Just straight to the point. "You have always been the responsible one," she said. "He needs someone stable right now." I almost laughed. For years, I was the kid who was fine. The one they assumed did not need help. The one they left to figure it all out alone. Now suddenly I was dependable? I asked her why she was calling me. "Why not Dad?" She hesitated. Said Dad was struggling with the news. That meant he was probably in the garage pretending to be busy with his tools, just like always. Then she said it again, softer this time. "You have always been the one we could count on." I did not answer her. I just said I needed time to think. But even as I hung up, I knew I was not thinking about Josh. I was thinking about all the birthdays they missed, all the moments they ignored, all the times I stood in the corner of my own life while they clapped for him. And now? Now they wanted me front and center. 3 days passed before I called them back. Not because I was busy. Honestly, I just needed time to sit with it. Every part of me was screaming, "Do not do it. But there was this quiet voice inside, probably the same voice that kept me silent as a kid, that said, maybe this time will be different. So I drove over to their house, the same one I grew up in. Still smelled like cinnamon and bleach. Still had that crooked picture frame in the hallway that nobody ever fixed. They were all there. Mom, Dad, and Josh, propped up on the couch with a blanket over his lap like a wounded prince. He looked thinner, more pale, but still had that same smug flicker behind his eyes, like life owed him another free pass. He nodded when he saw me. No, thank you. No, good to see you. Just a nod, like he expected me to show up. Mom got busy right away. Coffee, tea, water, hovering like she was managing a press conference. Dad barely looked up from the sports channel. I sat down, hands folded, and waited. Finally, Mom said it. Josh needs a place to stay while he figures things out. Just for a little while. I blinked. With me? She nodded, like it was a done deal. I let out a breath, slow and tight. Asked why not here? Why not the house he grew up in? Mom glanced at Josh. Josh shrugged. Too many stairs, he mumbled. Then she launched into this speech about how I was in a better position. How I had a stable job, a nice apartment, no kids or wife to worry about. It sounded familiar. That same tone she used years ago when explaining why Josh got the last slice of cake or the front seat in the car. You have the space, she said. And you are not the type to let your brother fall through the cracks. Something inside me cracked. But I did not yell. I asked one question. Just one. Why now? Mom paused. What do you mean? Why am I good enough now? Why not back then, when I was getting good grades, when I graduated college, when I got that promotion, when I moved into my first place? Where was all this back then? No one spoke. Even the TV in the background seemed to go quiet. Josh had the nerve to speak first. Look, man, I am in a tough spot. You going to help or not? I stared at him. At the brother who never lifted a finger for me, who made my life hell growing up, who laughed when Dad ignored me, who once told a girl I liked that I was adopted as a joke. And now he wanted a bed? Before I could answer, Mom touched my hand and whispered, You are the strong one. You always have been. And I realized something. They did not want me because they loved me. They wanted me because they had run out of other options. I said yes. Still do not know why. Maybe it was habit. Maybe I thought helping him would finally make them see me. Maybe deep down, I just wanted to prove I was better than the way they treated me. So I cleared out my guest room, bought fresh sheets, even stocked the fridge with the snacks he used to like, just in case. The same guy who once told me I would never amount to anything was now crashing in my apartment like it was some extended spa retreat. The first few days were quiet. Josh mostly slept, complained about chest pain, watched a ton of TV. I gave him space. Figured maybe humility would show up if I waited long enough. But humility never came. One night, I walked in from work, exhausted, only to find my living room a mess. Pizza boxes on the table, empty soda cans on the floor. And there he was, feet up, scrolling through his phone like he owned the place. I asked him if he could at least clean up after himself. He just looked up and said, Man, I am still recovering. Like I was his nurse. Like his collapse gave him permission to act like royalty again. By week 2, he had invited over 2 of his old friends, guys I barely tolerated in high school, without even telling me. They played loud music and trashed the kitchen. When I said something, Josh rolled his eyes and told me to chill out. I did not chill out. I reminded him this was my home, that I took him in when no one else did. He shrugged and said, Well, you always were the responsible one. That line, that same line Mom used. You're the responsible one. As if it was a compliment. As if being the one who got ignored, pushed aside, dumped on, that was some kind of honor badge. The next day, I got a text from Mom. Just 2 words. Thank you. No heart emoji. No follow-up. Just that. Like my life had been reduced to a task crossed off her list. But what really twisted the knife? She added, Josh said you were being a little strict. Try to be more understanding. Strict? I was housing a grown man who refused to flush the toilet or wash a single dish. And I was the problem? That night, I sat alone in the dark, just staring at the ceiling. I could feel something old bubbling up inside me. Something I thought I had buried years ago. Resentment. It sat in my chest like a brick. And for the first time since he moved in, I wondered if I should throw him out. It happened late, almost midnight. I was halfway through brushing my teeth, mentally replaying a work email I forgot to send, when I heard it. A knock at the door. Not loud. Not urgent. Just steady. I figured it was Josh's idiot friends again. Maybe locked out. Maybe drunk. Maybe both. I wiped my hands and shuffled to the door, already annoyed, already forming the sentence in my head. You got 5 seconds to walk away, or I start charging rent. But when I opened it, it was not one of them. It was Mom. She stood there in her coat, holding a plastic bag like she had just come from the pharmacy. Her hair was messy, and for once, she looked tired. Not the usual "I've been cleaning all day" tired, but the kind of tired that settles deep in your bones. The kind that makes you look older than you are. Behind her was Dad, not saying a word, just standing there with that same blank expression he wore through most of my childhood, like he was always somewhere else. I opened the door wider and stepped aside. They walked in like they owned the place. Josh, of course, perked up when he saw them, threw his arm dramatically over his chest like he was starring in a hospital drama. "Hey, you made it," he said, like this was all expected. Mom went straight to him, cooing like he was 5 years old. Dad hovered near the hallway, eyes bouncing between the family photos on my wall, photos they never bothered to ask about. Then Mom turned to me and dropped it. "We were talking," she said, "and we think it might be best if Josh just stays here long term. You know, until he gets back on his feet." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. It did not come. She meant it. Dad nodded, as if to seal the deal. They were not asking. They were delivering a verdict. I could feel the heat rising in my ears, that old fire they always managed to light with just a few words. I looked at Josh, who smirked. Smirked, like he had won something. I looked at Mom, at the woman who forgot my 17th birthday, who clapped louder for Josh's C- than she ever did for my awards, who once told me that life was easier for me because I was low maintenance. And all I could think was, "You are doing it again. You are choosing him. Again." I took a breath. Slow. Deep. Then I said something I had never said before. "No." It came out flat. No anger. No yelling. Just the truth. Mom blinked. "What?" I said. "No," I repeated. "He is not staying here. Not long term. Not even another week." Josh scoffed. "Dude, seriously?" I ignored him. Dad opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Then Mom took a step toward me. "Daniel, you are being selfish." I laughed. Out loud. A bitter, sharp sound that bounced off the walls like it did not belong. "Selfish," I said. "After all these years?" That was when I saw it. A flicker of something in her eyes. Guilt? Or maybe just surprise that I finally said it. Silence. Thick, awkward, gut-punch silence. Josh was still sitting on the couch, arms crossed, like he was daring me to back down. Mom looked frozen, like someone had unplugged her. Dad just stood there, pretending to study the bookshelf like he could read his way out of this moment. And me? I felt calm. Not angry. Not emotional. Just done. I said no. I repeated, this time quieter. Firmer. And I mean it. Mom blinked fast, like she was trying to summon tears. Maybe she thought if she cried, I would cave like I used to. But she forgot. I do not play that role anymore. Josh leaned forward. "You seriously kicking me out? After everything I've been through?" "After everything?" I said, stepping closer. "You mean after a lifetime of being handed things while the rest of us were expected to orbit around you?" He rolled his eyes, muttered something under his breath. I kept going. All I ever wanted was to be treated like I mattered. One birthday. One good job. 1 second of you all looking at me like I was more than a spare part. Mom started to speak, but I cut her off. "You all only came here because he crashed. If he was still riding high, you wouldn't even remember what street I live on." No one argued. That was the loudest truth I had ever said in that room. Then I walked over to my kitchen drawer, pulled out a small envelope. "Here," I said, tossing it on the coffee table in front of Josh. "That's the number for a short-term housing support office. They help people in situations like yours." He looked at it like I had just thrown garbage at him. "You're really doing this?" he said, voice low. I nodded. "Yeah, I am." He stood up, chest puffed, like he was going to launch into some big speech. But nothing came out. Not a single word. Mom finally found her voice. "This is not you, Daniel. You are better than this." "No," I said. "I am finally being me. The version that does not let people walk in, use me, and leave crumbs behind." Dad stepped forward. For the first time in maybe 15 years, he looked me in the eye. He said one word. "Sorry." And it hit harder than I expected, because it was the first time I had ever heard it from him. But still, not enough. Josh grabbed his backpack, slung it over his shoulder, slower than necessary. Like he was waiting for someone to stop him. No one did. He walked out the door. Mom followed him, muttering something about finding a motel for the night. And Dad? He lingered, staring at me like he was finally seeing someone he had overlooked his whole life. Then he walked out too. Door closed. Silence returned. But this time, it felt different. Lighter. Like maybe, just maybe, I had finally reclaimed the space I was never allowed to have. I thought that would be the end of it. I figured once Josh was out, I could go back to my life. Quiet. Simple. Alone, but peaceful. That night, I made myself a grilled cheese, sat on the couch, and watched old sitcoms like nothing had happened. But peace is never free. Especially in my family. The phone rang the next morning, first thing. I ignored it. Then it rang again. And again. 6 calls. 3 voicemails. 1 message from my aunt, who never calls unless someone dies or gets arrested. I finally picked up on the 7th ring. It was her. Aunt Linda, my mom's older sister. The only person in the family who ever sent me birthday cards growing up, even if they were late and always from the bargain bin. Her voice was sharp, like she had been waiting for the moment to unleash something. "Daniel," she said, "what exactly happened last night?" I sighed. "They asked me to house Josh long-term." I said no. She went quiet. Then she laughed. Not mocking, more like relief. "I cannot believe you actually did it." That threw me off. "What?" She let out a breath. "Daniel, your mom's been calling everyone all morning, telling people you turned on your own brother, that you're punishing Josh for being sick." My stomach sank. Of course she was. Painting me as the villain while Josh played the fallen hero. Classic. She said you kicked them out like they were strangers. I could hear the judgment creeping into her voice. Not from her, but from the script she had been fed. I did not defend myself. I just asked one thing. "Did she ever tell you why Josh needed a place to stay?" There was a pause. "No," she said. "Just that it was urgent." I filled her in. The failed investment. The debt. The partying. The freeloading. The way he trashed my apartment while pretending to be some fragile patient. By the end, she was silent again. Then she said something that hit me like a second slap. "Daniel, I always knew you got the short end, but I didn't realize how bad it was until now." I said nothing. She went on. "You know, your mom used to say you were the one we never had to worry about. I think she used that to justify ignoring you." And there it was. The truth, said out loud by someone I never expected. Aunt Linda said she would talk to the rest of the family. Clear the air. I thanked her. But part of me knew it would not matter. Because this was not about clearing the air. This was about breathing again after holding my breath for 30 years. And yet, just when I thought it was over, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Josh. Only 3 words. "You ruined me." That was the message. Just 3 words, but they hit like a punch straight to the chest. For a second, I just stared at the screen. Not angry, not surprised, just tired. He had lived his whole life expecting someone else to clean up his mess. And when I finally refused, somehow, I became the villain in his story. I put my phone down without replying. But the words stayed. Later that night, I poured a drink, just one, and sat out on the balcony. The city buzzed below like it always does, cars humming, lights flickering, people moving. The world did not care about my family drama. And honestly, that was comforting. I told myself I would not reply. But I did. I wrote, "You ruined yourself." Then I put my phone on silent and went to bed. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up to a banging on my door. I knew who it was before I even looked through the peephole. Josh. Slouched. Eyes sunken. Wearing that same beat-up hoodie he used to brag about back in college. I opened the door just a crack. "You got some nerve showing up here," I said. He leaned against the frame like he was trying to keep himself upright. "I need to talk. Just 5 minutes." I let him in. He looked around like it was the first time he had really seen the place. Like suddenly, it meant something to him. "I'm not here to yell," he said. "Or beg." I stayed quiet. He sat on the edge of the couch and started rubbing his hands together. Nervous. Like he was trying to find the words before they slipped away. "You remember when we were kids," he said. "You used to build those Lego towers. I'd knock them over." I nodded. "You thought it was funny." He looked up. "I did. But not just because I liked breaking things. I did it because I hated that you could focus. That you were steady. That Mom and Dad never saw it." That stopped me cold. He kept talking. "I knew I was the favorite. Everyone did. But I was scared, man. Scared that if they ever saw you, really saw you, they'd stop looking at me." It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever heard from him. But it was not enough. I am not here to fix things, I said. If you came for forgiveness, you are 20 years late. He nodded. I get that. Then he pulled something out of his pocket, a photo. It was from when we were kids. Me, standing off to the side at his birthday party, holding a wrapped box. Not smiling. Just there. I found this at Mom's. She had albums full of me. This was the only one with you in it. That photo said everything. I was not part of the story, just part of the background. Josh stood up, walked to the door. I do not expect you to care, but you were never invisible to me. I just did everything I could to keep it that way. Then he left, and just like that, everything shifted. It was a week of silence after that. No calls, no messages, no drama, just the hum of normal life trying to settle again. I kept waiting for the shoe to drop, because with my family, it always did. And right on cue it did. That Sunday afternoon, I opened my door to find both of them standing there. Mom and Dad. No warning, no heads up, just two aging people on my doorstep, holding a pie like it was some peace treaty. Thought we'd stop by, Mom said. All casual, like she was not the same person who once told me to lower my voice because Josh was having a rough day. Dad nodded, hands stuffed into his jacket pockets. Eyes on the floor. I did not invite them in. She glanced past me, probably expecting to see Josh on the couch, still playing the helpless patient. When she saw the empty room, she frowned. We talked to your aunt, she said, and we think we might have been too hard on you. That was it. That was her version of an apology. I did not respond. She shifted, clearly uncomfortable. We thought you were fine. You never needed anything. Dad spoke next, quietly. You always figured things out. Your brother never did. I could not help it. I laughed. A bitter, sharp sound that cut through the hallway air like a knife. So let me get this straight, I said. You ignored me because I made it easy for you to ignore me? They flinched. Both of them. Then Mom said something that really hit. Daniel, we need you now. There it was. Not love. Not regret. Just need. They had run out of options. Josh had checked into some low-income housing program through the city. He was still in debt. Still jobless. Still calling himself a victim. And they were tired. Tired of fixing him. Tired of chasing him. So now, they wanted me. Not as a son, but as a solution. You've always been the responsible one, she said again. Like it was a prayer. I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. No. Her eyes went wide. What? I said no, I repeated. You don't get to call me now. Not after 30 years of silence. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. I was your son too. I was there. I showed up. I did the work. I waited for a turn that never came. Dad finally looked up. Daniel. No, I said. You do not get to rewrite history. You made your choice. I paused. Let that sink in. Now I'm making mine. I turned. Walked back inside. Closed the door. No yelling. No goodbyes. Just silence. The kind I had always lived with. But this time, it was mine. I did not hear from them again. Not right away. Not after that last conversation. Not after I shut the door. I thought maybe they finally understood. Maybe they realized that the version of me they built, the one who waited quietly, who gave without asking, who cleaned up the messes they never acknowledged, was gone. But old habits die hard. 3 weeks later, another message came. This time from Josh. A photo of him in a hospital bed again. No words. Just that image. Another silent request. He wanted me to reach out. To ask if he was okay. To offer help. A place to stay. Money. Time. Anything. I stared at the picture for a while. And then I deleted it. No anger. No bitterness. Just clarity. This was the cycle. His crisis. Their guilt. My silence. Their need. And always, my absence taken for granted until it became their inconvenience. I finally understood something that had hovered over me my whole life. Like static you hear, but never quite identify. They did not hate me. They just never chose me. And that realization? It hurt more than any insult they ever threw. More than every birthday they missed. More than every award ceremony they skipped. Because it meant I had spent years trying to earn something that was never mine to begin with. Love that came with conditions. Respect that came with silence. Attention that only showed up when someone else fell apart. I had always been the responsible one, sure. The quiet one. The easy one. But I was also the one they only remembered when something broke. And standing in my apartment, the place I built with no one's help, Surrounded by the life I carved out alone, I finally spoke the truth out loud, just to myself. They taught me I wasn't enough, until they needed something from me. And now? Now I know better. I was always enough. They just never saw it. And I am done waiting for them to catch up.